Hello, everybody. Welcome to part 3 of your heart and circulatory system in this advanced webinar series. And you all know who I am. I'm Dr. Peggy Parker, and I'm a naturopathic and European biological medicine physician. And after so many weeks and months of listening to me, you know why I love that so much. And it's because the primary underlying theme of biological medicine is that if you could reduce oxidation on cell membranes and create a slight shift in the pH of blood, urine, and saliva, and get more minerals into cells, a body could heal itself of virtually anything. And so tonight, our anything that we're going to really be honing in on is blood pressure and strokes. So this will wrap up our discussion of the heart and circulatory system. So we're going to do sort of a brief review. I'm going to kind of go through it quickly and then get on to the new topic for tonight. So we always have to start from the beginning, and we start with cells because cells form tissues, and tissues form organs, and organs form systems, and systems form organisms, or us. And so the heart and the circulatory system have many parts, and a lot of people view it as just a vehicle to deliver blood, but it's so much more than that, as we've covered in past sessions. It has all kinds of functions, including delivering waste products to your liver and your kidneys, delivering nutrients out to cells, interacting with your lymphatic system. It's very complicated. And here is a picture of your heart, and the pieces that are so important, especially that aorta and the supravena cava and the inferior vena cava are so important. Because if we have any narrowing in the aorta, which is pretty common, that's where a lot of people would have a lot of plaquing, we no longer can pump enough blood into the arteries to create enough blood flow. And if we have narrowing or loss of elasticity in the venous system, we're not getting enough blood, enough spent blood back through the lungs and in through the lungs and into the aorta. So it's all a system that has to work together. So here are some pictures of your veins and capillaries and kind of the structure of them. So arteries have a thick muscle, veins have a thinner, more elastic muscle, and the capillaries have no muscles and no valves. And so this is how the exchange happens. It goes from the heart around through the body, and in these capillaries we make an exchange of spent blood, and that goes back to through the veins back toward the heart, through the lungs, and then back to the heart, and then out the heart through the arteries. And here, this is why the lungs are such an important part of this circulatory system, because it's in the lungs that we are able to get enough oxygen into the blood in order for it to get out to the system. And remember that the only difference between blood or the primary difference between blood and chlorophyll, which is plant blood, is that in mammals, our blood is red simply because the center of the molecule is actually iron, which attracts oxygen, where in plants it's magnesium. Remember, for those of you who have taken the lymphatic system classes, the lymphatic system is very involved with our other circulatory system, the heart and blood vessels, and they're wrapped around, the lymphatic system is wrapped around in order to deliver nutrients to the blood and take waste products away. And that blood is made of red blood cells, white blood cells, and plasma. And we took a little time to look at the different ways to view blood, and here is a picture of blood under a bright field microscope. And then we also looked at dark field and dried blood. So here we have some great pictures of healthy blood under a dark field microscope, less healthy blood, unhealthy. Remember, this one is because of, it's called rouleau, and it's because the blood cell membranes have become so sticky that they're all sticking together. Leaves us with less oxygen and less nutrients to take out to the cells. And then we have some very unhealthy cells. This could be indicative that somebody would want to check for bad bacterial, viral, fungal, or even cancer. And then we talked a bit about cholesterol and whether it's our friend or our foe. We talked about the fact that cholesterol is essential. And in fact, our cells can use a 37-step process to make it if we don't take in enough. It's the primary building block of all cell membranes, and it functions in intracellular transport and signaling and nerve conduction. It's also a precursor for hormone production, and it's essential for the production and assimilation of vitamin D, which we're going to talk about a little bit later, and why vitamin D is so important in maintaining your blood pressure. So, gotta have enough cholesterol to assimilate the vitamin D, to help with our interaction with calcium, to create a healthy blood pressure. So complicated. We talked about a little bit about the role of the liver and how the liver is very involved in our whole venous and arterial systems, because the liver processes everything. And we talked about the fact that when the liver is too toxic to take on any more chemicals, it actually stores it out in fat. So we looked at always at healthy cell membranes that allow enough oxygen and water in and carbon dioxide out, and that there is cholesterol embedded between each one of those little balls that are our phospholipid bilayer. And that there are 3 types of cholesterol: HDL, the good one, and LDL, the bad one, and the VLDL, the very bad one. And we looked at some guidelines, and we talked about in naturopathic medicine that we actually like to see a little higher cholesterol numbers than these guidelines, but it's really all about the ratios. We want to see an HDL of greater than 60, an LDL of less than 140, and low triglycerides. And we talked a little bit about some common diseases of the circulatory system. Mostly we talked about arteriosclerosis and atherosclerosis. And we looked at the difference that arteriosclerosis is actually a thickening of the inner wall of the artery, while atherosclerosis happens when plaques build up, and it causes a narrowing of the arteries so that we are unable to get enough blood flow through. And we looked at what it's like when you have a coronary artery disease and you have a angioplasty that and then place the stents, and but it's kind of like they blow up a balloon and leave a little cage behind. But it does not actually address the problem. It's only a solution, a temporary solution, because this can just keep happening elsewhere in the veins and arteries, particularly arteries, if we're not taking care of why we have plaque in the first place. And that plaque is caused by oxidized cholesterol, but it is also temporary. It's supposed to serve as a temporary patch. When a vein, when an artery begins to lose its elasticity and it looks like it's going to develop an aneurysm, many times our body will use cholesterol as a patch to keep that from happening. But as we have too much oxidation happening, then we create a very oxidized cholesterol patch that becomes hard. And as it hardens and it grows bigger and bigger, we start to see some real blockage in the arteries. We talked about some ways we could clean it up, and we'll get to those tips a little bit later, but let's talk about blood pressure. So for those of you who don't quite understand what blood pressure is, it is it's the measurement of the force that's exerted by the blood going through the artery. So it's the amount of force that's that's being pressed against the walls of the artery, okay? So the blood pressure reading comes in two parts. The systolic pressure, which is the top number when you say it's 120/80 or it's 200/140 or whatever. Then we start to see that top number is the amount of pressure, the amount of pressure in the arteries that happens when the heart beats and fills up the artery. And the diastolic number is the bottom number, and that's the pressure in the arteries between heartbeats when the artery is resting. So this is all really important because as you take your blood pressure, there are some things that can affect that. So a poorly made or an out of calibration blood pressure cuff can cause a lot of problems for people. They can get pretty nervous when they see some crazy numbers. But these numbers are important because if we have too much pressure on the arteries during the systolic phase, we can start to create aneurysms or other problems that can start to wear down that thick muscle of the artery and cause some weakening of the blood vessel. Now, blood pressure is measured in millimeters of mercury, and so that looks like mm's or millimeters of and then mercury, the atomic symbol for mercury is Hg. So that's why you see that millimeters of mercury. And then the optimal readings are below 120/80. So what doctors really like to see is something like 118/78 or 115/72. But acceptable readings will be anywhere from 100, and depending on your age and a few other factors, they'll let it slide up to 140 for the systolic pressure, and on the diastolic pressure from 60 to 80. I'm sorry, that should say 60 to 90 mmHg are acceptable readings. Sorry about that. But we hardly ever talk about hypotension. Hypotension is real. I used to have hypotension years ago. My blood pressure was in the 90s over the 50s for all of my life until I started drinking Kangen water. So go figure, right? So there are several types of low blood pressure and causes of low blood pressure. But the most common one that's not just a constant, mine was constant, but the most common one that's not constant is called postural hypotension. And so for a lot of people, when I do an intake on patients, you'd have them lie down on a table and exam table and take their blood pressure, and then have them get up quickly and take the blood pressure again. And so when they stood up, if their pressure dropped, then we knew that there were some problems that would be related to some issues in their body with their endocrine system. So here are causes of blood pressure that are below 90/60 on a more consistent basis, and that would be hypoglycemia, which is the opposite of diabetes. So you've got low blood sugar. Sometimes pregnancy will cause a drop in blood pressure. Heat exhaustion or a heat stroke will cause that. Some people react to stress by their body shutting down. And so stress can create, chronic stress can create low blood pressure. Liver disease can create low blood pressure. Parathyroid disease can create low blood pressure because of an inadequate amount of calcium in their body, in the body. So let's see, and nutritional deficiencies can happen. What nutritional deficiencies can cause is a widening of blood vessels and a lack of elasticity. So you're not seeing that pump. So it's just more of a flow instead of a hard pump through the blood vessels, and so that there's not much pressure being exerted on the arterial walls. And sudden drops in blood pressure can be life-threatening, and those could be caused by profuse bleeding, from an injury, from low body temperature like hypothermia, or from too high a body pressure, temperature, which would go back to heat exhaustion or a heat stroke. The heart muscle causing heart failure. So if you have disease in the muscle so that the muscle's not contracting and expanding to pump the blood, that can be a problem, of course. A severe blood infection, which is also known as sepsis, can cause the blood pressure to bottom out. And severe dehydration is one of the major causes of low blood pressure. Now, that could be because you're sick and have had diarrhea or vomiting or a high fever, but people who have chronic dehydration have low blood pressure. So that's why I had low blood pressure, because I was chronically dehydrated. I had lots of other symptoms of chronic dehydration, but my doctor should have asked me if I was drinking enough water, but they never did. If you don't drink enough fluid, you don't produce enough, you don't have enough pints of blood or liters of blood flowing through, and that causes a low blood pressure. And then allergic reactions can cause that as well. So especially if you're looking at anaphylaxis. Anaphylaxis does not create high blood pressure, it generally creates low blood pressure. So when I said that when I would do an intake of a new patient and have them lie down, take their blood pressure, and then stand up quickly, one of the things that I would look at next is this person properly hydrated? Does the person have a liver problem? Do they have a parathyroid problem? Do they have an adrenal problem? Now, sometimes people who are taking drugs to control high blood pressure actually get low blood pressure. So that can be a problem. That would cause postural hypotension. The other things that cause postural hypotension would be diabetes can create postural hypotension. So drugs that treat high blood pressure, erectile dysfunction, Parkinson's disease, neuropathy, anti-anxiety drugs, and antidepressants can all cause hypotension. But I'm sure most of you are more familiar with the next topic, which is hypertension. So hypertension or high blood pressure is any pressure that's above 140/90. And there are two different types of high blood pressure: primary hypertension and secondary hypertension. So mild to moderate hypertension generally doesn't have any symptoms. And then severe hypertension, which would be like 160/115, then we're into the severe hypertension, are usually associated with increased sleepiness, confusion, headaches, and nausea or vomiting. And there are some other complications of high blood pressure which extend to to organs and systems in our body, because if your blood pressure is that high, then the heart is working way too hard to pump adequate amount of blood to all the tissues in the body. And so as hypertension increases, so does the tension on the arteries. And as the blood vessel walls become damaged, we can see all kinds of issues like aneurysms and strokes, things like that. It can create some problems. Also, if hypertension continues to stay that high, then oftentimes there's not enough blood flowing to the legs and feet, and you'll start seeing people who have all kinds of problems, from anything that could range from peripheral neuropathy to the diseases like gangrene, things like that, that can cause some real issues in the feet and toes. And let's see. So let me see if I can get that out. Atherosclerosis, I got it, is usually one of the big causes of hypertension, because as we saw in those earlier pictures, as the blood vessels narrow, it's harder and harder to get enough blood flow through, so the heart has to beat harder and harder, and you start wearing out your heart muscle, which can cause a heart attack, and you wear out the blood vessels, which causes, like I said, peripheral artery disease. It causes strokes and aneurysms. Coronary artery disease. It can cause damage to the retinas of your eye, to your kidneys, can cause hemorrhages in your brain, congestive heart failure, all those wonderful things. And then there's eclampsia, which is happens during pregnancy, which I also had, toxemia of pregnancy, which leads to eclampsia with my first kid. And because my blood pressure was always so low in the 90s over the 50s, when it got up to 125 over 85, I told them there was a real problem. But they said, well, you know, it's just normal blood pressure. And I'm like, not normal for me. And then I started having all these other problems, like my feet got 3 times their normal size, and I had shining lights in front of my eyes and all kinds of things. So then I'd stay in bed for like 8 weeks. But because my blood pressure was always so low, that range of blood pressure, while it was dangerous for me, it's not as dangerous as it is for people who start out with normal blood pressure, a more normal blood pressure, and have it get much, much higher. It can actually lead to strokes and have some very serious complications both during and after delivery. So let's move on to primary hypertension. So primary hypertension is high blood pressure that's not due to any underlying disease. While the precise cause might be unknown, there are lots of factors that have been identified that are what we would consider causes to primary hypertension. So there are a lot of lifestyle things like living a sedentary lifestyle, smoking, excessive alcohol intake, and things like stress, anxiety, and depression are very common causes of primary hypertension. One of the biggest and most widespread causes of primary hypertension is chronic dehydration. So easy to fix, right? And then high sodium intake that would cause retention of water, which would raise the amount of blood you have in your body, can create hypertension. The use of some drugs, both recreational and prescription drugs, can cause hypertension. So it's that thing where, you know, you go into the doctor with one problem, and you get a drug and it causes a whole host of other symptoms, and some of those are hypertension. One really big thing is nutritional deficiencies. So we talked last time about the narrowing of blood vessels from excess plaque, which is going to be part of your diet. Too many foods and drinks and lifestyle and all of that that's causing an excess of free radicals in your body that's going to create the oxidized cholesterol, which is going to form plaques. But it's also about having nutritional deficiencies that are causing a lack of integrity of your blood vessels. So that can happen from low calcium, low vitamin D, excessive potassium, and low magnesium levels. Now let's talk about secondary high blood pressure. So that can happen from hormonal abnormalities that can be the result of thyroid, either hypo or hyperthyroid, adrenal, either excessive adrenal overload, which means that you're in fight or flight mode all the time. And this is going to be one of, not our next series, which is on the lungs, but the one after that is going to be on our endocrine system. So we'll talk a lot more about the thyroid, adrenal, and parathyroid. Parathyroid controls the calcium levels in your body, and so you can either have too much or too little calcium. Diabetes and other autoimmune disorders can create secondary hypertension. Over-the-counter drugs for pain. I actually read somewhere recently that taking ibuprofen increases a woman's chance for a heart attack by 5 times. Things like decongestants can cause an immediate problem with hypertension. It can cause your blood pressure to spike like crazy. Much better to use a neti pot and some 2.5 and 11.5 water, right? Makes sense. Birth control pills, especially the higher dose birth control pills, one of the side effects can be hypertension. And then atherosclerosis, or hardening of the arteries, narrowing of the blood vessels. Sleep apnea. So for those of you who have a partner, or maybe it's you who has sleep apnea, one of the things that is one cause of secondary hypertension, because your body never rests when you have sleep apnea. Never has a chance to get into a deep sleep because you're constantly going without enough oxygen and then to get some oxygen in. So sleep apnea is a huge problem. This is something that if you have a partner or you yourself have sleep apnea, not only is it disturbing to everyone in the house because you snore so loud, but it's also really dangerous for your health. And so it's important to look at the reasons that you have sleep apnea. Most of the time, people who are overweight have sleep apnea because when they lie down, they get too much pressure on their throat from their double, triple, and quadruple chins. And it puts too much pressure and they aren't able to breathe very well. So going to a sleep doctor would be really important. Obesity is a cause of secondary hypertension. It's also a cause of sleep apnea, so losing weight can actually help both. Stress can cause secondary hypertension. Kidney disease can cause secondary hypertension because you are not able, which when we get to the kidney portion of these advanced classes, you'll see how crazy the tie-in between hypertension and kidneys are. Kidney function is so essential to keeping blood pressure normalized. It's really pretty remarkable, the connection. And it's all about the integrity of blood vessels. So if you don't have an integrity of blood vessels in your kidneys, it creates more hypertension, but hypertension can destroy or damage those small blood vessels in the kidneys, and so it's a downward spiral. So, you know, the best thing we can do is keep our blood vessels healthy. The way we do that is by making sure that we are reducing oxidation that's causing a problem with the blood vessels in the first place. Recreational drugs like cocaine and amphetamines really raise your blood pressure through the roof. Now, I'm so old that when I was young, really young, and about the time I got to middle school was about the time that, for those of you who are old enough to remember her, Twiggy popped on the scene. And once Twiggy popped on the scene, everybody thought that you should be stick skinny. This was the beginning of people being underweight. And so doctors prescribed amphetamines all the time. And I remember when I was between 7th and 8th grade, my doctor put me on amphetamines. I never slept the entire summer, not more than an hour or two at night. It was like I felt like my eyelids were like shades that pull down and they just pop up and you can't make them go close. And I existed on Tab, which was the diet drink of choice back in those days. My mother really didn't know anything about nutrition, which is one of the reasons that I do know a lot about nutrition. So anyway, I can tell you that that was the only time in my life that I had, besides when I had toxemia, that I had normal blood pressure, which wasn't normal. It was actually really high blood pressure for me. Now, remember that which isn't on here, and it should be, another one of the big contributing factors to secondary hypertension is also chronic dehydration. Now, think about the fact that if the water that you're drinking cannot penetrate your cell membrane because your cell membrane is so oxidized, and the water that you're drinking is highly oxidized, because, you know, if you measure your water with an ORP meter, you're measuring tap water, it is a positive, sometimes positive 600 or 700. So that's a lot of free radicals in the water. So if you're drinking water with lots of free radicals in it, and you're adding to your free radical load, and on top of that, now you already have thick, sticky cell membrane, so it's not letting enough water in. Now you're just creating more and more and more dehydration in the body, no matter how much water you drink. Because once I started understanding how important water was, I drank more than a gallon of water a day, but I was still chronically dehydrated because I was drinking RO water and adding some minerals in. And, you know, those minerals are not organic minerals. They're inorganic minerals that cause a lot of other problems, including excess calcium, not the calcium you get from food. Excess calcium that you get from your water means that it's taken it out of the earth. It's like limestone. Now, how many of you have seen what limestone looks like? Imagine if your blood vessels are like limestone, and your heart is like limestone, and your kidneys and your liver are like limestone. You can literally turn yourself into a statue by having too much or excessive amounts of inorganic calcium. So while secondary hypertension can be treated with with organic calcium, inorganic calcium can cause the problem in the first place. So when you look at calcium, if people are taking calcium supplements, you want to look and see what kind it is, because the vast majority of calcium supplements are made out of bone, and so they're calcium carbonate. And that is not anything that you want. If it didn't come from something that you would eat, you don't want to take it as a supplement, because it's just a concentrated amount of that. Since we don't eat dirt and we don't eat bones. Like dogs can eat bones and they benefit from that calcium. We don't. We're not equipped with the proper digestion and digestive enzymes and all that to break it down and be able to use it. So any amount of calcium carbonate that we take into our body is very hard on our system to absorb it, so it mostly gets stored away, and that's how we get, that's part of that hardening of the arteries. That's part of cataracts. That's part of bone spurs and kidney stones and gallstones. But if we balance our nutritional deficiencies, we can make some huge strides in the elasticity of our blood vessels and the in normalizing our blood pressure. So remember earlier I said that if you have a lot of sodium in your diet, it means that you retain water, and then you have too much volume of fluid in your body, too much blood, and that can cause a problem. But generally speaking, people who eat pretty well often don't have too much sodium, but they have too little calcium, bioavailable organic calcium, and they don't have enough vitamin D, and their potassium levels are too low, and so are their magnesium levels. This can all be easily changed by changing your diet. We're going to talk about that a little bit more later. But mostly what you have to do in order for absorption in the cells to happen is to change the cell membrane. Remember, we have those pumps and channels and receptor sites, those proteins that are embedded in the cell membrane that are supposed to take in the minerals, the vitamins, the enzymes, the hormones, all that are necessary to create healthy cells. We have to have all of them, but if we have not removed the excess oxidation from the cell membrane, not enough of any of that gets in. So, you know, how easy is it to cure two things with one glass of water? So you not only reduce oxidation, you actually increase your hydration, which allows all the rest of the stuff downstream to take effect. So now we're going to move on to strokes. So there's two main kinds of strokes. The ischemic kind, which are created from a lack of blood flow to the brain because we have a blockage, and that can cause a stroke. And so in those kinds of strokes, what generally happens is that we have a certain section of the brain that is that's been deprived of blood flow, and so we have some that can create some real deficits. So you'll see that some people have strokes and they have to relearn everything, because even though that part of the brain might have been damaged, your brain is pretty resilient, and the part of the resilience is that we only use a small percentage of our brain cells, so another section of the brain can take over for that one, but you have to relearn. You have to relearn to walk, have to relearn to talk, have to relearn to feed yourself, all those kinds of things. By the way, one of the most interesting treatments for strokes is a hyperbaric oxygen chamber. Hyperbaric oxygen chamber helps to get more oxygen into the blood, helps normalize blood pressure. And when that happens, people are able to recover if they've gotten almost immediately after having a stroke, within a few days after having had a stroke. If they can start hyperbaric oxygen treatments, they recover at least 95% of their function. Now, it's unlikely that you would have a stroke if you were drinking ionized water adequately, unless you just don't pay attention to your diet. I mean, the water will not make up for a terrible diet. It will only help a little. And then the other type of stroke is a hemorrhagic stroke, and that's where the blood vessel ruptures and creates an unrestricted blood flow, and that can destroy a big section of your brain. Most people do not recover from a hemorrhagic stroke. So let's see here. Forgot to turn some pages here. Forgot to turn a lot of pages. All right. Well, anyway, strokes can be a result of plaque on the ischemic side, or it can be a piece of a blood clot that has broken off and traveled to the brain. That's pretty common. So when you have peripheral artery disease because of lack of blood flow to the extremities, one of the things that happens is that you often get a blood clot in your leg, like deep vein thrombosis, that kind of thing can happen because of a lack of proper blood flow. When that happens and you start taking some drugs to help break up the blood clot, the interesting thing is that pieces of it can break off and go to your heart, or it can go, travel to your brain, or, could go to your kidneys and create some havoc. But when it really creates a problem is either when it gets to your heart and it stops the heart from being able to pump blood, or when it gets to your brain and it creates an issue. But so if you can, like looking at this picture of ischemic stroke, you can see that if you've already got some plaquing going on and then you have a little piece of a blood clot, you can see what kind of issues you could have. So again, this whole thing is about preventive medicine. And while I think that there's a lot of good to be done by using herbs, and there's a lot of amazing work to be done by changing diet, if we don't start by removing oxidation, we don't really get anywhere. We make tiny strides instead of big strides. So when I was still in practice, I used to see people that would come in that had crazy cholesterol numbers and crazy blood pressure numbers, either really high or really low. And after being on the water for sometimes as little as 3 months, their cholesterol numbers had changed pretty dramatically in terms of the ratio. The ratio of HDL to LDL was moving in the right direction. Doctors would be amazed. But where we really saw the change was in blood pressure, because they were already following a good diet. They were already doing all of those things. So now what we were doing is getting their body properly hydrated, because we were removing oxidation so that their cells could actually become hydrated. And we were, doing that dual-pronged approach where we were changing cells and changing hydration. This made people's blood pressure go down. And so a lot of the things that cause strokes are high blood pressure. That's one of the major things that causes a stroke. If you have chronic high blood pressure, you are setting yourself up for a stroke big time. So remember primary hypertension, that's about 95% of the 90 to 95% of the hypertension that's in the world is the primary kind, and the smaller percentage is the secondary type. And ischemic strokes happen more often than hemorrhagic strokes. So atherosclerosis, ischemic strokes, and primary hypertension all have mostly the same underlying cause, and that is high rates of oxidation that are causing blockages because of oxidized cholesterol. So you can see they're all pretty tied together. Now the hemorrhagic stroke is the opposite. This is where we have weakened blood vessels that didn't get a plaque lay down, that didn't get a cholesterol lay down. And so now things like hemorrhagic strokes and aneurysms would be in that area where we have blood vessels that have lost their elasticity and have no integrity in that thick muscle. Remember, arteries have the thick muscular wall. Well, that has changed due to lack of nutrition. All right, so high blood pressure, smoking, diabetes, obesity, a sedentary lifestyle, lots of different medications can cause a stroke. Unhealthy blood vessels, which happen from diet, and atherosclerosis. So let's look at the, it's called FAST. Like, these are the signs of a stroke. This is what how you tell. So F would be for facial drooping, A for weakness in the arms, S for speech difficulty, like all of a sudden you either can't make a word come out, or you're trying to say something and something else comes out, or you start slurring your words. And if at least 2 of those are happening, you get concerned, but if all 3 of them are happening, it's time for T. It's time to call 911. So you've got to handle it as quickly as possible. The faster you can identify that someone's having a stroke and do something about it, the more likely they are to live and to recover. So remember FAST: face drooping, arm weakness, speech difficulty, time to call 911. So let's go to our tips, because this is where we're going to get some of our more dietary related info. So tip number 1, we all know why. We're going to change the water. Got to get that hydrogen gas and those free electrons in, so we can make those bodies lower their rate of oxidation and increase hydration. Got to change your diet, because we need the fiber from grains, we need the fats from certain kinds of foods, we need the minerals from things like nuts and seeds, we need the essential fatty acids that we can find in coconut oil and olive oil. We need some of those antioxidants that are in dark colored berries, like blueberries and acai berries and strawberries and raspberries and blackberries. We need that. We need the anti-inflammatory properties of turmeric and dark chocolate. But here's what you're going to find out. This is why I eat kale virtually every day, and one of the reasons that it's so important. Leafy green vegetables are one of the best sources of calcium that has the proper relationship and ratio to magnesium to create proper absorption of the calcium. Without the right ratio of calcium to magnesium and without enough vitamin D, you do not absorb the calcium well. And there was a pretty good research study done at the Texas Health Science Center that showed that if you have at least 800 milligrams of calcium a day, it reduced mild high blood pressure by 20 to 30 points in the subjects that they studied. That's significant. And another study found that people under the age of 40 could cut their chances of developing high blood pressure by eating enough calcium, not by taking it in supplement form, but by eating it. And the chances of high blood pressure went down on an average of 20% for every 1,000 milligrams of calcium consumed by every day by people who were not more than moderate drinkers. So if you drink more than 1 drink a day, you lower the amount of calcium absorption. So it's really important for you to think about how to get the calcium in when it's also accompanied by magnesium, and how to get enough vitamin D in your diet. So remember, vitamin D, one of the most effective forms of vitamin D comes from exposure to sun. So you really got to get your sun in early in the morning, later in the day, when there are not the burning rays, UVB rays. You don't want those. You want the UVA rays, because that helps you create vitamin D in your skin. Now, it's the most absorbable type of vitamin D. The vitamin D that you take in supplements is less absorbable by the body, so less useful. And you do store vitamin D in your body when you get enough sun during sunny months. For people who live in sunny climates, it's easy. For those of us who went through like February and March in Washington, where we didn't see the sun, it's a little more difficult. So that's why you got to store it up in the good months. I always tell people, the great thing about living in Washington is that it's idyllic in the summer. It's not usually too hot, so you can enjoy it at least part of the day outside. And, if you're going to spend more than 2 or 3 hours in the sun, or if you're going to spend time in the sun when you have burning rays available, you do need to use a natural form of sunscreen. Other than that, you really want to actually expose your body to sunlight. It doesn't have to be super direct. It can be, you can be under a tree as long as you're getting some sunlight on your skin. It's not like you can get it in the shade just because you're outside. You do need the exposure to the sun, but it doesn't have to be a lot, and it doesn't have to be for long periods of time. You just need to do it often. In fact, there have been some studies that showed that people can get enough vitamin D in the winter with just your face and hands exposed and spending at least 20 minutes in the sun. Now, I don't know, I think only if you were in the class on eyes, would you have learned that there is a direct relationship between your eyes and your hypothalamus that is dramatically affected by glasses, sunglasses, and contacts. And so it's really important to be out in natural light. So this is the time in the summertime when you can take care of everything all at once in 20 minutes. You can be outside in non-burning rays, without glasses, contacts, or sunglasses, enjoying some time in the sun, getting in your vitamin D, and creating a situation where you're getting enough natural light in through your eyes to positively affect your hypothalamus, which is the master gland in your endocrine system that controls everything downstream, which you'll learn more about. So the ratio that you need to think about when you're thinking about vitamin D is that you need about a calcium, only about 20 to 30% of the calcium that you eat will be absorbed if you don't have enough vitamin D. So kind of important. So let's see. So in some people have really low vitamin D levels. My daughter, my middle child is one of them. She lives in Austin. She doesn't go out in the sun. She won't listen to me because she's my daughter. You know how that goes. And so she's a redhead. She slathers herself with all kinds of sunscreen if she does go outside. So she never has enough, and her vitamin D levels are dangerously low. She's also was a vegan for over a decade and is a pretty strict vegetarian now. And she doesn't, for a long time, she was a vegetarian before she became a vegan. And I had to teach her that vegetarian actually comes from the root word of vegetable, because her vegetarianism was really based on philosophy of not wanting to harm animals. And so she was eating chocolate, pasta, and cheese, which was not helping at all, right? And French fries, stuff like that. So she now, then she learned to eat vegetables and she was better, but it has caused these low vitamin D levels and lack of absorption of calcium have caused a lot of problems for her in her ligaments, and she suffers from a lot of pain in the ligaments in her lower half of her body. So, your diet really is important, and even if you're eating well, you still have areas of improvement to be made. We're going to talk about one of those in a little bit. Now, tip number 3 that we've talked about before is avoiding common allergens in processed food like wheat and corn and sugar and eggs and soy and preservatives and food colorings. And tip 4 is stress reduction. And tip 5 is the alternating hot and cold water showers. Now, here's tip 6. This is a great one. Celery juice. So celery juice is kind of a cure-all. Celery in itself is kind of a cure-all. It will actually lower your blood pressure, and that is because it has bioavailable sodium, not the sodium that we're eating in the form of salt, which is like calcium from bones or from rocks. Any of that is very difficult for our body to process. So people who eat a lot of salt on their food are more likely to cause kidney damage, high blood pressure, that kind of thing. But if you take in bioavailable sodium from celery, it actually lowers your blood pressure. It actually increases the integrity of the electrolytes in your body. The sodium in celery is the kind of electrolyte that helps carry electrical impulses. So think about your water ionizer. When you have the enhancer tank in there, that's saline, so it's just salt water. What happens when you introduce the salt to the water that's passing through an electrical field? It causes more electricity to flow through the water, which splits more water molecules, which gives you the high pH and high antioxidant rate, right? Well, so think about that in your whole electrical system in your body. If you have enough bioavailable sodium, you're also able to get more electrical impulses to move through your nervous system. This is so important. There was a study done on beta blockers in celery. And celery was 5 times more effective than beta blockers. Now, I'm going to challenge you. Celery juice kind of doesn't taste that great. Like if you juice celery, I don't really love it. But if you dilute it, you should always dilute all your juices, no matter what kind it is. If you dilute it with 2/3 ionized water, 1/3 celery juice in your glass, wow, it doesn't taste so bad. And now you're adding more ability for the celery juice to get into the cells. You're increasing the absorption, you're reducing the oxidation, and you're increasing the amount of antioxidants. Pretty amazing. So there is a chemical in celery that lowers blood pressure, and it is, it's called 3N-butylphthalide, or 3NB. And it's what gives celery that aroma of smelling like celery. And it's unique because the active blood pressure lowering compound is found in a high concentration in celery and not in other vegetables. So adding more celery to your diet in general, you just, eat a celery stick or 2 or 10. But juicing some celery has dramatic health effects. If you drink a little glass, like 4 ounces of 2 to 4 ounces of celery juice every day, you will see a fairly dramatic difference in your overall health. Let's see. Oh, it's also a diuretic. Celery is a diuretic. So better than taking the prescription diuretics. And it turns out that they have been used for centuries in Chinese medicine. There you go. All right. Regular exercise, whether you like to do something that enhances your sense of relaxation and you like some, just quiet time, yoga is a great option. Or maybe you're the type who really loves to be in a class and you really want to get the cardio going on, and that helps you engage in your day and engage in life and keep your blood and your lymphatic fluid flowing, and that's how you really reduce stress. Or maybe you like to just take a walk with your friends, and doesn't matter if it's mall walking. It's really great. Here's that 20 minutes outside without glasses or contacts and without a long sleeved shirt on, and there you go. Early in the morning, later in the evening, as long as the sun is still up, here you go. Here's one way you knocked out 3 things at once. And don't forget to take your small water bottle with ionized water. Or if you're a person who really prefers to work out with a tape or just do calisthenics at home, it doesn't matter. Regular exercise is essential to good heart health and circulatory system health, both for your lymphatic system and your cardiovascular system. Because remember, that we have to keep this in mind, that oxidation leads to dehydration, which leads to inflammation, and that creates this downward spiral to illness. But if we follow some of these basic water protocols, we can actually reverse any of those things by introducing more hydrogen gas, more free electrons to restore hydration, which causes intracellular pH balancing, which causes higher levels of oxygen in the cells, which makes the cells available, or makes oxygen available to the cells so they can produce more energy, which makes the cell become more high functioning, which means that tissues are revitalized and we start creating healthier tissues to create a healthier body. And by doing all of that, we can impact the health of people all around the world, just one simple glass, or not so simple or not so ordinary glass of water at a time. So let's open it up for some questions. I know we're running a little late, but I'm okay with that. Anybody have a question? Okay, go right ahead.
When I was looking at the stroke,
yes,
my mind was running off to Parkinson's. And so what would be the relationship to Parkinson's in the brain and blood?
There's not one. Parkinson's is about the nervous system.
Okay. All right.
Anybody else have a question?
No.
Okay, go right ahead.
I have 2 questions. Is that
okay?
Well, first of all, thank you for the celery tips. I knew that was good, but now really, I'm really going to do it because it always helps to know what is happening in my body. So thank
I
you.
agree.
Oh my God, I'm going to go make a juice for my son. So thank you. I did a demo this weekend,
Uh-huh.
and amazing enough, one of the people said to me, if we can do the 11.5 with vegetable oil and olive oil. And I'm like, sure, let's bring it over. It did not emulsify.
It doesn't emulsify as easily because well, for one reason, the toasted sesame oil is very oxidized. As you toast that, you're creating an oxidized oil in the sesame, that sesame oil, the dark sesame oil. So that's why it emulsifies so much easier.
Versus the vegetable oil and the olive oil?
Yes, because the vegetable oil and olive oil are not very oxidized. So if you happen to get some old rancid oil, it also emulsifies easier.
Because I asked my upline and she said that because the olive oil and the vegetable oil did not emulsify because there's not a virgin olive oil. They are not virgin and they are full.
That's not true.
Oh my God.
People make stuff up all the time.
Yeah, I know. So I was like, well, just a minute. I'm going to talk to my Dr. Peggy. She's going to tell me the right truth answer. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh my God. It's crazy. I'm like, sure, let's just do it. I'm like, oh my God, what am I supposed to do here? So I said, I'm sorry, I don't know.
And that's the best thing to ever say, because I think that I think that the most effective teachers or salespeople are people who admit they don't know the answer to something and then say, but I'm going to try to find out, and then I'm going to get back to you and let you know the answer. Because I know I can find the answer, I'm just going to get back to you, which gives you another opportunity to talk to them and explain it, which gives you another opportunity to have an opportunity to talk to them about the water and about buying a machine. So it all works out great. You don't have to know everything. Nobody knows everything. I don't know everything.
No. And could you please let me know if the Yukon turmeric supplement that is sold by Enagic, I think it has vitamin D in it. Is that correct?
I don't know.
Oh,
I don't know.
Okay. So you don't
See,
know.
I don't know.
Okay, that's fine. So, okay, so you don't have any input or comments about the supplement that Enagic?
I don't.
Okay. And I'm sorry, but I had to ask one more question. Is that okay?
It's okay.
One of the other persons in the demonstration asked me, and I didn't remember what you explained. I know we have different type of pHs in the body, like in the stomach and in the vagina is very acidic. So what happens when we drink alkaline water? It just goes through and it doesn't change the pH in those areas? Is that what
it doesn't change the pH anywhere. So the thing that changes the pH is bicarbonate that's released by high functioning cells and systems. So alkaline water is not a buffer. So it can't change the pH of anything because it's not a buffer. Buffering systems in our body work when our cells are functioning properly and our organs and glandular systems are functioning properly. So what happens when we drink the water, it's not really about the alkalinity. The thing that's most important about alkaline water is that the more alkaline the water, the more antioxidants it carries. And the more alkaline the water, the faster it passes through the stomach and into the small intestine, so you can be hydrated. And so if you're drinking ionized water that has lots of antioxidants in it, and it goes through the stomach and into the small intestine, then that's where your bloodstream and your lymphatic system are picking up the water with its antioxidants and carrying it throughout the body. So it's never our job or our attempt to create an alkaline body. We want to create one that's balanced. So whatever the pH for that cell is will happen, because when the odd thing is that when like the vagina is supposed to be about 4, pH 4. And if we introduce things to it that cause it to be more alkaline, we get a yeast infection or a bacterial infection, or we get all kinds of things. Candida, all of that can happen because we made it too alkaline, right? It's not because it got too acidic, it's because it got too alkaline. The same with our skin. We can have some real skin problems if we make our skin too alkaline, because it's supposed to be about 6, pH 6. And when we use soap, which is very alkaline, we can create some real problems. That's why we use other things to balance our skin. That's why when you put beauty water on your skin changes so much, because you've now balanced the pH. That's why people's acne goes away. That's why rosacea goes away, because we've now balanced the skin pH, okay? So we're not trying to make our bodies alkaline. We're trying to create a balance. We're trying to create homeostasis in our body so that all the cells can be their correct pH. And that happens when we remove the oxidation from the cells. So the antioxidants are what cause everything to get into balance, not the pH of the water. So that's why it's kind of important to change how you talk in demos. And so I just finished doing a demo class for some folks down in San Diego. And I'm getting my act together to be able to do another class for any of you who've taken at least the intro class, so I can help provide you with the PowerPoint presentation that's short, stays scientific, and keeps people on track so that you can make your point. And then after you're finished with that, then you add in some of your little experiments. But I'd be happy to, if you all are interested, I'll be happy to put one of those together sooner rather than later.
Yep.
Okay.
Do we need to put together some people and then you will be willing to come to do a demo?
Well, no, it's not that. We'll do a workshop, an online workshop. And so once we have a group of people ready for an online workshop, it'll take about 3 sessions, 3 1.5-hour sessions to get through it. And at the end of that, you'll get a PowerPoint presentation with an entire script that you can use to practice and, put your own spin on it a little and,
Okay, good.
make it your own, as they say.
Sure. You will let us know that we have to plan it.
Okay. I'll let you know. If everybody will let me know if they're interested, or if you've got people in your upline or downline that are interested, people in your team, then we can plan appropriately for that. Okay?
Yes, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Anybody else have a question before I let you go?
Yep.
Are we good?
Yes.
Okay.
Next week we start the lungs, kind of an important one. So if you haven't signed up, I forgot to change the price back, so you'll have until midnight to sign up, because the more forgetful I am, the better it is for you.
The lung.
So we need to sign up for the next course next Monday?
Yes. If you haven't already signed
haven't.
up for the lungs, you'll want to get on there and get that done.
Are you going to send the link, Dr. Peggy Vargas?
So if you look up ionized water info, you'll find it, but I'll send you a link. I'll try to remember to send you a link.
Okay, please. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. All right, well, that's it. We wrapped it up for the heart and circulation. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope it helps you answer more people's questions. And
Yeah, it does. It's great.
All right, go juice some celery.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Goodbye.